Ready? Okay. So Quảng Trần comes from Vietnam, a Vietnamese ISP, and he's going to talk to us, share with us about client-server botnets, taking them down, fighting them, the way you see it from the point of view of an ISP. So that is an important job, actually. It helps everybody. So you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good. So, firstly, I want to right. So, a little bit about me. I am living in Hanoi, Vietnam, and I do research in reverse engineering and malware analysis, as well as botnet tracking and signal. And of course, I love traveling and football. Currently, I'm working at Viettel Group. This is a ISP company in Vietnam. And you can contact me via my Facebook or Twitter profile. So that's all. And the content of my talk will be this: why ISP care about botnet takedown, and a little bit about botnet infrastructure and how botnet usually being taken down. And then we can use ISP advantages to take down botnet. And the final one is some examples and conclusion. Let's begin with why ISP care about botnet takedown. So obviously, ISP one of the most affected organization once botnet is spread via their network, because they had to care about customer. They had to protect the customer from botnet, like prevent customer from being stolen money and from being fake. And that's the first priority to ISP. And then they'll have to protect their network from botnet activities like DDoS action. And recently we all know about maybe the largest DDoS attack in history that bring down the whole internet of the half of the USA. So network protection is the second priority. And furthermore, ISP also have to respond to law enforcement requests, like when a botnet activity coming from their network, they will have to return to law enforcement request by shutting down the IP address that being affected and doing the bad activity, etc. So here are some reason why ISP care about botnet takedown. And since they are ISP, they have many advantages in taking down a botnet. And then let's talk about botnet infrastructure. In the scope of my talk, I will only discuss about client-server botnet, which is a pretty common infrastructure to a botnet network. About the peer-to-peer botnet, that's a totally different story, which is not mentioned in this talk. About client-server botnet, there are several characteristics of this kind of botnet. The first one is they use centralized command and control servers. Like the hacker can stand from one point, from one CNC server to control the whole network. And this might be the weakness of this kind of botnet. And one more characteristic of this kind of botnet is that they use command and control server by using domains and IP address, which is controllable by ISP. And furthermore, they send commands directly from command and control from CNC servers to its bot, to its infected computers. So this is the way a client-server botnet works. So usually a client-server botnet being taken down by some normally process like firstly we have to identify the command control server, which IP address, which domains being used to control the whole network, and by doing the reverse engineering of the botnet sample, we can identify the command control servers. Also, we can also monitoring the network activity of the infected computer to identify the command and control servers. And secondly, we have to work with the service providers of the IP and domains using to control the botnet to obtain those servers by like rebuy expired domains and or request for domain hosting termination or domain rebuy, which may be hard to obtain by not every time the service providers will cooperate with the request to terminate their customer hosting or customer domain. So the disadvantage of this method is that we have to depend on the service providers and nothing to do with, furthermore, we have nothing to do with the bulletproof domains or hosting. Those are domains and hosting provided by some, maybe the person do not care about such requests or do not care about law enforcement requests. So this is really hard sometimes to do the normally way to take down client-server botnet. And once again, because ISP control the whole network of the infected computer, so they had many advantages in taking down this kind of botnet. The first one is they control the domain name server system, which is requireable to resolve CNC domains into IP address for infected computer to connect. The second one is they can monitoring the whole traffic running through their network and do some processing or routing if needed to, modify the behavior of the traffic. And then they can also have DPI, which is Deep Packet Inspection Framework, to take a deep look in every packet running in the network and even modify or inline changing the packet content. So this is basically a powerful advantages of the ISP in the fighting against botnet. So how do ISP use those advantages in fighting against, client-server botnet? The methodology is firstly, the ISP has to redirect all the CNC traffic to ISP analysis server. I know this might be sometimes illegitimate to redirect client traffic to some other server rather than the original one when the client requests. But this is a case of botnet, and as long as you have the the agreement with the client to accept that they can be protected, they can be be transparent, protected from threat like botnet, this is acceptable. So the first action we need to do is redirect CNC traffic to ISP analysis server. And the second one is the analysis server has to work totally the same as a real CNC server. This is the hard part of this method, because we can have the malware sample and reverse the malware to easily pointing out the CNC domains and IP, but not on the way you can, not all the time you can analyze the binary to to find exactly protocol the server use to control the network. So this is the second phase. The third step is that you have to send termination command to connected victim, which is sometimes not achievable because some client server botnet might have some mechanism, some method to protect their network from being taken over by this method. But usually, for some famous botnet like Ramnit or Andromeda, this method works. And then after termination, after the termination of the botnet of the malware on the victim computer, you can inform customer if needed when they revisited the domain, the CNC domains, or when they opening up their browser. So this is the short, brief, summary of the methodology in taking down a botnet using ISP advantages. So let's go into the details. First, the first question every ISP has to answer before they taking down a botnet is which botnet to taking down. That's the problem of target selection. You have to collect information about any botnet found maybe in the world, and then you identify their CNC domains and IPs. After has some initial data, you can do some statistic on ISP network to find which botnet is running in ISP network and which botnet has the largest number of customer infected. And so from that, you can point out which botnet should be cared first. Maybe the botnet with the largest number of customers and the botnet with the infrastructure easily to be taken down. And the last part of the attack acceleration, you have to have some recently samples of the chosen botnet to be reversed and find out the protocol of the server. So the first phase in taking down botnet is select the good target for the the botnet. And then the hard part is that you have to do a deep reversing on not just to identify CNC domains and IPs, which not require much time, but to be fully build the bot protocol, which require many more efforts. And after you build the fully protocol of the botnet, you can have to capture maybe you have to capture some traffic to verify that what you analyze is correct and ensure the protocol perfectly match the capture traffic. And this is an interesting part of this method that you have to build your own single servers, which pretend to be the CNC server. This part is interesting because instead of spread the malware over the internet and have the whole network, basically using this method, you have to control the whole network inside a ISP of the attacker. So, which means you can easily capture every victim, capture every infected computer as long as the computer is inside your ISP. So the single server is consist of basically three parts. The first one is the dispatcher, which is receiving connection from every botnet in the network. And then based on their plugins, each plugin is represent for a different botnet like Zeus, Ramnit, or Andromeda. The dispatcher will pass the first packet into every plugin until one plugin responds the correct message. And then after that, the dispatcher keep processing the incoming session into the corresponding plugins. And all the data collected is stored and retrieved to the database. It's simple. So the dispatcher will identify the botnet by content of the packet, not only by the not only always respond a packet with a single kind of botnet. The dispatcher has to know which packet is from which botnet to respond corresponding. And this has the advantage of supporting multiple botnets using one simple server. And also, using this server, you can notify user about botnet termination when user accidentally browse to a domain using to be a CNC. Like when user browse to a CNC server, you will see he will see on his screen the splash showing that this botnet has been taken down by the ISP, and he totally be safe when surfing the internet. So it's basically the idea of the single server. And then the most important part that require ISP advantage is command control redirection. Using the advantages, ISP can easily redirect any botnet traffic to their analysis server. The first case is when the botnet using a domains at their CNC server. Because the ISP owning all the DNS server, so the ISP can return the analysis server IP instead of the CNC server IP to the victim. So when one victim, an infected computer connecting to a CNC domain, then it will be redirected to the analysis server. It even can be achieved because mostly the customer will use a default DNS server on their computer, which is set by ISP to be their DNS server. So what if the user do not use the DNS server from the ISP? Like they may use a DNS server from Google or OpenDNS. This is a case when other methods have to take a packet. Like if the user requests the DNS domain name, the domain from other DNS server rather than the ISP DNS server, the ISP has to do some routing in DNS traffic, like point CNC domain to DNS to analysis server. This can be done by the first method is respond faster than the real DNS server. Like when you see a packet, which is a DNS request from the infected computer to the DNS to the other DNS server for the CNC domain, the ISP can quickly respond to that request with a analysis server IP. So the client will receive that packet as the response of the other DNS server and ignore the real response from the other DNS server. Or the second method is that you can routing the DNS traffic to all the DNS ISP DNS server. So when ISP DNS server receives the bad domain from client, the ISP DNS server can directly return the analysis server IP. And for other requests, the ISP can keep asking the relay DNS server like Google or other DNS. So by this method, the infected computer will seeing the DNS request as normal and do not knowing about being redirected to analysis server. And what if the victim using IP address as CNC server? If this happens, you have to routing on CNC IPs to analysis server. This can easily be done by ISP because they own the whole network, the whole infrastructure, so they can pointing the CNC server IP to their analysis server without any difficulties. So in this case, analysis server have to use some IP tables or NAT technique and to serve botnet requests and respond as expected. And so after redirect the traffic into analysis server, the REST path is quite simple. When a victim connect to analysis server, the server will serve and save bot information to database as normal. So the victim, the bot, will have no idea about what server they are connected to, because the whole process happened without any modify, without any disruption to the normally traffic of the botnet. So after the connection of the botnet, of the bot to the server sends the termination commands to bot. That can be done easily because after reverse the full protocol of the botnet, the ISP can easily be pretend to be the real server and sending the termination commands. After that, they can notify the user if needed. And here are some example of botnet and signal server. And in fact, we built a simple portal to represent each victim connected to the server and easily sending command to them to terminate the botnet, the bot on their computer. So I can show some example about that. The first one is the remnant botnet. This is a file virus which is infected into every executable files on computer. The protocol of this botnet is raw TCP using port number 447, 443, etc. Depend on the version of the botnet, and using some custom RC4 encrypted to the communication between client and server. After reverse the full protocol of the remnant botnet, we see that the remnant has some command which can be used to eliminate them from their own computer, like the update command, download, execute, even take screenshot of the victim computer, or remove data access via FTP, or even key in OS. I don't even know why a botnet has the option to key in the victim OS, because that's almost cannot make any, benefit, any money from that command. So in this case, we only have to send the update command, which replace the version of the remnant botnet with other harmless file. So, or even download and execute a remover tool. So here the screenshot of the photo after receiving some current. Here the status of the current of the victim, the OS of the victim. This botnet will also report about the network speed of the victim. Maybe they can, based on the network speed, to sending some proper another malware to the computer. And we don't know, we don't exactly know what this fail mean, but I guess we guess that the group of the victim. And with some public IP being blurred, and here some timestamp of the activities of the botnet. So as you can see, we can easily collect and monitoring every activity of the botnet on the network and so on. We can send termination commands to the victim. Another example is the case of Andromeda botnet, which is very common in our ISP. The protocol of this botnet is a HTTP protocol, and also using some custom RC4 encrypted. The commands available in this botnet is update another version and download and execute some executable. And also, they have a interesting command which is uninstall self from the computer. This is all we need to terminate the botnet. All we have to do is, in this case, is sending the uninstall command to every victim connected to the server. That's much easier than sending command to update another version, which is a harmless file, and have to do some, cleanup on the victim computer. And here the screenshot again. This botnet only send out the status, the OS version, which is not very clearly, and not much more information. That's all. And in fact, there are many other botnets which we were already, seeing out and monitoring during the year, and they have many information about victim uploaded to the server. So it might be some consideration when using and publishing the information. So in conclusion, this method has some pros and cons, of course. First one is the pros. It can be easy and quickly to deploy, and it works with most client-server botnet, and it fits for any ISP. And it's easy to cooperate between ISP and even between countries to terminate the botnet, just to pointing out the DNS of the bad domains or bad IPs to the analysis server of any ISP. And although the cons is not work on anti-takeover botnet, like the boss verify server before executing commands, or the boss using symmetric keys like the previous talk has been mentioned about. That's good hint from Jens for me to do some research on such kind of botnet. And that's my presentation. Thanks for listening.
Okay, contentious topic in some countries. So, and any remarks, questions?
So just as Eric said, contentious question, how does it fit with privacy laws and regulations?
You're asking about privacy?
Privacy laws and regulations. You probably can't do that anywhere. There's a lot of countries where doing what you explain is forbidden by law. And even the disinfection part, when you access the bot to disinstall it, it's borderline.
Yeah. As I mentioned, there are problems about user privacy and the agreement between user and ISP when they decide to using ISP internet service. So it's totally depend on case and on country and on ISP, which have to do some agreement with the customer before doing the redirection or botnet termination, and also depend on the country, rules. And in this case, in my country, if the ISP and the customer has the agreement, that's okay to do the redirection.
Thank you for the talk. It was great. My question is that do you also get requests from your customers, like individual customers or companies, that they are reporting botnet activity and they would like to you to take it down?
And can I repeat the question? If you're asking for reporting botnet activity from customer, right? Yeah, actually, there's not many times that customer report for the ISP, report to the ISP for the botnet activities, because even the customer do not know that the computer is infected, and they basically do not care about the malware on the computer until they got some, bad consequence, like being stolen money from bank, or being losing or lose their information exposed on the internet. So basically, we not rely on customer report. We must find and figure data botnet by ourselves.
Okay, one last question over there.
Yes, here. It's not clear to me if you actually did deploy these methods on your ISP network, or you are just speaking theoretically here. I mean, did you take down some botnets on your network using these techniques?
Thank you. This technique has been deployed to our ISP, but not for termination, just for blocking access from CNC server to our client. But it has been deployed on our company to remove the malware from company computers, which is much more, legitimate to achieve.
Okay, no more questions? Sure. Okay, thank you very much.